Hey friends, British Ben here, and I know I rarely make an appearance on this channel nowadays, but I'm back for a Star Wars Star Trek mashup. Who doesn't like a good Star Wars Star Trek mashup?
I am your father.
Hehe. Now in the past we did the Enterprise E versus an Imperial Star Destroyer. The Enterprise E just about won. But what about the Enterprise D? Who would win? Let's take a look. First we'll go through the technical information and then we'll get into the battle. The Star Destroyer is 1,600 meters long, the Enterprise D is 642 meters. The Star Destroyer has 60 turbo laser cannons and 60 ion cannons, a small number of other types of turbo lasers, and 10 tractor beam projectors. It also has a fleet of 72 TIE fighters and also has an incredible number of people on board, over 9,000 officers, 27,000 enlisted crewmen, and 9,700 stormtroopers. The Enterprise D has 12 phaser arrays, 3 photon torpedo launchers, although one is not usable unless the ship separates, same with one of the phaser arrays. The ship carries a payload of 250 photon torpedoes. It also has tractor beam emitters and carries shuttles and shuttle pods, but they aren't designed for combat, so aren't really that useful. The crew complement of the Enterprise is much smaller, with just 1,014 people on board, which includes officers, crewmen, and family members of the crew. Alright, so let's actually get into the fight. So last time we had a huge backstory about how the Enterprise E and the Imperial Star Destroyer ended up together. This time, let's just say that Q, no, not that Q, means something different in 2020. That's the Q, alright, that Q, flings the Enterprise D to a galaxy far, far away, and yeah, it would have to be back in time too. They end up at some obscure planet where Darth Vader has been visiting the ruins of some Sith temples. His Star Destroyer is in orbit, and he's ready to leave when the Enterprise D suddenly shows up. Put out at the rude interruption, Vader assumes that the ship is rebel scum, and even if it's not, he'll use the ship to give his crewmen a little bit of target practice. He just has to prove that there is a little bit of a suspicion that this is a rebel ship first, just to stop nosy senators from asking too many questions. So he hails the Enterprise.
I'm Captain Jean-Luc Picard of the United Federation of Planets. We do not intend transgression.
You are part of the Rebel Alliance and a traitor.
For the record, Vader doesn't want Picard to deny his affiliation with the rebels so that the suspicion would stand up. So he starts choking the Enterprise crew.
You underestimate the power of the dark side.
Suddenly, Deanna Troi realizes that she is the only one not choking. Either Vader has a thing for that skin-tight bodysuit and is sparing her, or her Betazoid powers of partial telepathy are protecting her. So she concentrates. She doesn't do that. She concentrates and she sees if she can release the other bridge officers from the chokehold, and it really works. Picard, Riker, and everyone can breathe again. But still, on other areas of the ship, people are choking. She can't quite do it for them, but she suspects if they move further away from the Star Destroyer, Vader's powers will not be able to reach them. So she instructs Wesley Crusher to plot an escape course and engage, and it really does work. Picard gets Worf to fire a couple of photon torpedoes as a warning shot to the Star Destroyer as they fly away. This enrages Vader and he orders a pursuit course, and before you know it, the Enterprise D and the Imperial Star Destroyer are engaged in a dogfight, with the Enterprise always careful to stay out of force choking range, maintaining at least 7 kilometers distance from the Star Destroyer. At that distance, Deanna's powers are strong enough to protect the entire crew. The two ships exchange volleys of fire, the Star Destroyer being careful to maintain that side-on angle to the Enterprise to give it that full broadside of turbo laser fire, and the Enterprise D utilizing its smaller size and higher maneuverability against the Star Destroyer. Now the Enterprise E fighting the Star Destroyer was kind of like a speedboat maneuvering around an oil tanker, but the Enterprise D isn't so maneuverable. Its maneuverability is more like that of a large yacht or perhaps even a ferry. And this meant a lot more of the Star Destroyer's fire is landing on target, with about 60% of shots hitting the Enterprise. The Enterprise is still holding its own though. Its shields are strong, and Picard sends out several volleys of photon torpedoes which start giving the Star Destroyer a severe battering. Vader, starting to worry, orders a squadron of TIE fighters to engage the Enterprise and asks his officers to scan the ship to find potential weaknesses. The TIE fighters engulf the Enterprise, and although their small turbo lasers have close to no effect against the Enterprise's shields, in order to deal with the swarm, the Enterprise switches to phasers and concentrates fire on the fighters. This lets the Star Destroyer have a bit of a breather, while 70 of their best TIE fighter pilots perish. They sacrificed for the Empire. Then an officer comes to Vader with the results of the scan and says they may have found a weakness. The ship appears to be carrying a complement of children. Now, Vader never had a problem with killing or torturing children. Even his own children. Vader gives the order, target their creche. Suddenly a barrage of turbo laser fire hits the daycare facilities and classrooms aboard the Enterprise. At first, Picard chuckles to himself as the thought of not having to hold Captain Picard Day next year flashes through his mind. But then he remembers he's a Starfleet captain and realizes what he has to do. Evacuate the kids and civilians to the saucer section and separate the ship. Why not use the escape pods? Wouldn't that be quicker and safer? Don't be silly, Paramount Pictures never had the budget for escape pod models, so the ship separates. The saucer section now has its aft torpedo launcher exposed to space, so they fire a few shots at the Star Destroyer as they fly away and attempt to fly around to the other side of the planet. But this proves to be a miscalculation. The Star Destroyer fires directly at the torpedo launcher and manages to breach the shields and detonate a large number of the torpedoes stored next to the launcher. The saucer is propelled toward the planet by the explosion, and the impulse engines have been knocked offline. An emergency landing it is. Data quickly studies page 29 of the Star Trek The Next Generation technical manual to find out exactly what he has to do. He crash lands the saucer, but it is a total loss. Now, the battle section of the Enterprise is still in orbit, but with the loss of the children on the saucer section, the will to fight is gone. Vader senses an air of defeat coming from the Enterprise, and he orders the Star Destroyer to fire ion cannons, which disables a lot of the electronic systems aboard the Enterprise, just long enough so they can fire off a tractor beam to pull the Enterprise battle section in. Some of the crew eject in escape pods, which you don't see on screen because Paramount Pictures didn't have the budget for that. You just hear this sound. And they are intercepted by stormtroopers as soon as they land on the planet. Because of the ion cannons, they are unable to engage the self-destruct sequence and blow the ship up, so the Enterprise battle section is captured. As Imperial forces dissect the ship, Vader takes particular interest in the dilithium crystals inside the warp core. Could this be a more powerful replacement for the Kyber crystal in a new form of superweapon? My master will be pleased. Most of the surviving crew members are sent to the spice mines of Kessel, but Picard alone, after being interrogated, is sent to the pit of Carkoon, where he'll be slowly digested over a period of 3,000 years. Or was it 1,000 years? Oh, it's a long time anyway. Alright guys, there you have it, that's the video. I'm sure Star Trek fans are disappointed. I'm sorry guys. I think when the Enterprise E is fighting a Star Destroyer, I really do think it would win, but the Enterprise D, the Galaxy-class starship, it's an older model, it's less maneuverable, it has way less weapons than the Enterprise E. I really don't think it would hold up. Plus they have the weakness of having civilians on board, so they can't take so many risks, etc. If you like this kind of content, Star Trek content, etc., why not check out our second channel, Generation Films. It's just like Generation Tech, but not just about Star Wars. We cover loads of different sci-fi franchises, including Star Trek, The Expanse, Warhammer 40,000, and a lot of superhero movies as well. So if you like the idea of that, I will put the link to Generation Films on screen and a few of our other Star Trek videos on this channel and that channel. But this is goodbye from me, and remember guys, if you're watching this, you are Generation Tech.